extremely important issues to discuss with you today. We just did the video, Mafia Alive and Well, where I show proof of Penn National paying off public officials, judges, lawyers, state police. This is a continuation of that. We're in the midst of elections. You have to know if your public officials are corrupt. You have to know that the dangers that we're dealing with. I first want to go back to Penn National, who got their license in Massachusetts for a casino. Even though I show you the wire fraud, the wire company they own, Cantor Gaming, involved in all these transfers. No one could transfer money without control of the wire without getting caught. The wire service got closed down, and the suggestion of organized crime. Okay. Now at Penn National, I had mentioned this, but this has got to be considered extremely dangerous. And people of Pennsylvania, I've got someone who's going to help you. People of Massachusetts, you can't have what's happening in Pennsylvania now happening in your state. Because Penn National is coming there also. And what's the bet that they don't own Rockingham Park? Either now, because they've already did all the payoffs to get it, or soon thereafter. Trust me, Penn National is going to wind up owning Rockingham Park. This is why I'm telling you is so concerning. Scott Brown, I've seen your commercials where you want to protect the borders of New Hampshire. Well, I'm going to put that to the test. And people in Pennsylvania need your help immediately, and the people of this country. There's identification and a commissioner, licensing commission, inside Penn National. The lady who runs this is called Nubia Bombardier. Seems like she takes $1,000 to $1,500 each and every time to give a license, a state license, commission, identification of that individual. So if you pay enough money, say you come through Mexico, you've got a license to show your identification and who you are, except for you paid $1,500 to get it. Can you say terrorism? Is that how we protect our borders? Scott Brown, if this is your campaign, I'm telling you, all you do is have to speak to her. Aren't you concerned about Massachusetts? Because the same thing could happen here. Penn National's allowing it. The commission in Pennsylvania is allowing it because they're running a cover-up. Donnie Brown's had all the commissioners on their bets and legal ownerships of horses. Who's turning anybody in? The people of New Hampshire, you're next. So you can protect our borders, or we consider this not a serious issue. And if we have this issue, where else could this go? So there's her name, and that's her price. I don't think we should pay it. Do you? Now, second important issue, and I want to consider these both an attachment to this last video. Don't watch this or not watch the other one. Before you vote, FRM, the Ponzi scheme of New Hampshire. You've heard me speak about it many times. The involvement of Walker and the Banking Commission and so forth. Well, I'd like to share something with you today. Let's get a little education about this Ponzi scheme. It was only the largest Ponzi scheme in the history of the state. And it only robbed and stole life savings of the elderly of the people of New Hampshire. Is that worth your attention? Listen, they didn't steal my money. Maybe they didn't steal yours. But they did steal theirs. Your fellow citizens of this state. When I told you that Governor Shaheen appointed Peter Hildreth, the banking commissioner, who's now again your senator, and asking you to trust her. See, I met with Bill, her husband. He spoke to me about how Peter Hildreth got hired. In fact, it was Bill who really hired him. He said that Peter came into his office and cried for the job. Listen, as long as we go to the FBI and they want me to take a lie detector test and we can hook up me and Bill. See who's telling the truth. Good luck getting it around him, though. Then I told you Kakavas, the U.S. attorney, covered it up. He was the prosecutor of it, right? Mark Howard, his partner, 3 months before, was a defense attorney for FRM. Wow. How about some more proof? How about hard proof? Let's go over. I've been given this memorandum, let's call it, of a meeting with Richard Head. Richard Head works for the AG's office, the Assistant Attorney General. He had an interview with Miss Soucy. Miss Soucy was the lead counsel of the Banking Commission. Miss Soucy hired a lady named Andrea Shaw, who started in 2003 or 4, she claims, for the banking department. She was hired as a staff attorney to handle complaints from licensing department, enforcement actions for exams, for consumer complaints, meaning if you had an issue, you would call the banking department. Say, for instance, the people of FRM, they were losing their money, they would call the banking department and they would talk to Ms. Shaw. Well, this interview with Mr. Head and Soucy continues, and a discussion about Andrea Shaw. And then Ms. Soucy goes how Andrea Shaw had a huge workload. And then she goes on, Andrea did the initial screening for consumer complaints. Okay? In 2006, Andrea Shaw had health issues, which kept her out of the office. Ms. Shaw was first hired. She was very productive, organized, addressed a backlog of pending issues. At some point, her health impeded her productivity. So also did not always get along with everybody. Let me understand this. The lead counsel now has Ms. Shaw working for her. Ms. Shaw is a head of consumer complaints. All of a sudden, in this interview, Ms. Soucy starts saying, oh, she's not getting along with everybody. She had a big workload. I want you to remember that. Ms. Soucy had no information as to whether Ms. Shaw was ever frustrated with the commissioner regarding the handling the case of a decision that was made in which Gallagher's office may have been involved. She thought that Mr. Hildreth's approach different from his predecessor. Mr. Hildreth was then the banking commissioner and saw things from both sides. Interesting. Understood that people in business work with people in resolution. He tried to make the penalty fit the violation. His approach was to first ask whether someone had been hurt. It wasn't quite as black and white as his predecessor. I don't know. Let me see now. So Ms. Shaw is speaking to the commissioner, and she's frustrated. Wonder what she's frustrated. Let me see. She's taking consumer complaints. Not black and white. No one was hurt. I don't know. Why don't we ask those people of FRM who lost tens of millions of dollars, their life savings, and if now some of them are bagging groceries in their 80s. So, yes, Virginia, they did get hurt. Let's go on. Ms. Soucy did not see the evidence that Chris Gallagher had undue influence with his office. Miss Gallagher had remarried and moved this practice to Washington. But Mr. Gallagher's office represented a lot of banks and licensees. Can you say FRM? Wow. Did you know that I guess Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Hildreth were buddies, which was why Miss Shaw was so upset and thought it was an issue. So let's get this. So the people protecting FRM is friends with the banking commissioner, and Ms. Shaw just pointed out, the girl with the big workload who doesn't get along with people. Really, She's not playing ball with you? At some point, either Mr. Hildreth or Mr. Flurry mentioned to Miss Susie that Mr. Hildreth was rescued due to involvement by his brother. Attorney Susie was not aware of the written policy. Oh, I'm going to have you here. Miss Susie said, I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't know. She's part of the cover-up, and she's also running for state senator in Massachusetts. I'm sorry, Manchester. So at some point, Mr. Hildreth or Florey, who was assistant of bank commission, mentioned him, the brothers on the Ponzi scheme. Hildreth's brothers on the Ponzi scheme. The lawyer for representing the Ponzi scheme is Gallagher and their close friends. How's that for a cover-up? And one frustrated investigator. An email on May 24th, 2006. Now remember now, we're investigating this in 2003, 2004, and we're discussions up to 2006. They were still stealing this whole time. How about if they went in 2003, how many people would have recovered their money? How many people would have not been victims down the road? They watched, they protected the cover-up. Then there was some friction between Peter Hildreth and Mark Conley. Remember the guy who wrote the book Cover Up? I wonder what they were fighting about. An email dated 24th from Shaw to Mary Jutra. Susie and Griffin Donna proceeded to stop negotiations with FRM to proceed hearing enforcement. Susie does not remember what triggered the event. I don't know, a Ponzi scheme maybe? But she don't recall. The 2006 exam promoted a second request for enforcement. The dishonesty aspects of the report were concerned. Dishonesty. Examination, but Attorney Susie would not. Susie was aware of several weeks in October for personal leave. Again, she's not responsible. In addition, Andrea Shaw left the department in fall of 2006. Before she left, Shaw not only had, but she was deeply involved in AmeriQuest, meaning she got kicked out. What's the bet? She wouldn't play ball. Now, Richard Head works for the Attorney General's office, which also means they know. They knew this Ponzi scheme was going on in 2003. Now, what makes this more interesting is that this is not just a memorandum, but it turns out I got Mr. Head's notes in his own handwriting. And there was quite a bit more in this that I'm going to see that the Attorney General's office, I'm going to send it to Eric Holder. Please, Mr. Holder, don't retire yet. I'll give you a feather just before you hit the door. Because when you go through the handwritten notes for Mr. Head, Richard Head, or what I like to call Dick Head, you're going to see that here's some of the things that they didn't put in the memorandum. Peter and Chris Gallagher were good friends. So you knew that from the beginning. Mrs. Susie, I don't recall an instance with the lawyers at Gallagher, Callahan, and Gorell went to Peter and said, do something. Oh, you mean like save your ass? Doesn't remember. Why bring it up? Peter's not more involved because of CGC than usual. Oh. So he's involved, but not more than usual. Really. FRM, most vivid memory, Kurt Gillis, examiner, calling department because he had concerns that the personal information they were getting was being duped. Really? Eventually, Director Peter Hitler excused himself. Eventually? It was only his brother and best friend. And then there was this little ditty that said mortgage specialist. You were going to use us for a cover. You had that in your pocket from 2003. And you sprung it just as they shut you down in what, 2008? I told you it was a cover-up. I showed you the information. I told you then it was happening. Well, this is in his handwriting. This is hard evidence that the feds are going to get in Washington. Before you vote, don't forget the cast of characters here. Ayotte came from the AG's office. Who knew what was going on? They did nothing. The banking commissioner, who signs a banking commissioner? The governor, who at that time was Shaheen. You see? Who signs the AG? The governor. The whole thing was corrupt. And now you're voting for these people. You see those commercials where they put their arm around the elderly? Where are the people from FRM? Why don't you put your arm around them? And I'm asking you, Mr. Brown, if you believe in what you're saying about the borders, I just gave you hard evidence of a way for people to come in this country, get a license from identification from the state, and they can travel to any one racetrack. Well, Penn National's going into New Hampshire. Trust me, they're already in Massachusetts. I've already told you they're organized crime. I gave you the wires that identify them. If you don't do anything, we shouldn't believe you. Thank you.
Anyone who turns on the TV these days knows we face challenges to our way of life. Radical Islamic terrorists are threatening to cause the collapse of our country. President Obama and Senator Shaheen seem confused about the nature of the threat. Not me. I want to secure the border, keep out the people who would do us harm, and restore America's leadership in the world. I'm Scott Brown, and I approve this message, because protecting the homeland is the first step to making America strong again.